This is the podcast for people who want to give back, get involved, and do more in their community, but aren't sure where to start. I'm Stephanie Dyer, and every month my co-host Courtney Dickey and I dig into the issues shaping how we give, why we give, and what actually makes a difference right here in Central Texas. Today, Court and I are talking about what happens when federal funding disappears and what that actually means for the nonprofits on the ground trying to plan, hire, and reserve people. Even the threat of federal funding disappearing makes an impact. You can't run a program on a maybe. And when the organizations doing the hardest work in our communities are suddenly staring down budget uncertainty, something has to give. So we're asking the question, is it sustainable to depend on government dollars that can be pulled with little warning? And does that mean billionaire donors end up holding more power over where help goes than anyone voted for? Then I sit with Sandra Chavez, Interim Director of Social Wellness at ASHwell, an organization that empowers Central Texans by providing sexual health and wellness services that serve the body, mind, and spirit. Sandra is a trained harm reduction educator who has spent her career showing up for people without judgment, and she was an absolute delight. Let's get into it and escape into a cause. Hi, Courtney Dickey.
Hi, Stephanie. So good to be back.
It's good to see you. We're really starting summer now.
I know. The heat is coming.
How are you doing? How's everything going?
Everything's good. Summer is definitely here, keeping the kids busy.
Colin is starting kinder next year.
Starting kinder in the fall. So I will have 2 kids at the same school. I am so excited.
Oh my gosh, and I have a senior next year.
That's impossible.
I agree.
How are we here?
It doesn't make any sense. I'm going to try not to think about it.
Connor starts high school?
No,
8th
he
grade.
starts 8th
Yeah.
grade.
So he'll be
we'll be doing
king of the school.
Yes, we'll be doing
You'll have
middle
2
school.
kings of the school.
I know.
That's cute. I love
middle
that.
school and high school graduation.
You're going to have a busy May.
I didn't realize Westlake High School did their graduation at UT.
They do. Did you hear RC? Like Travis does theirs at Round Rock Express Field. It's at the
that's
baseball.
cool.
I know, it's kind of cool. So they're all they're on the field, and then all of their family and friends are in the stands.
Oh.
And so that's kind of cool.
I wonder if all these high schools have really cool places. It sounds like it.
I know. I was like, it is cool until it's 97 degrees outside.
Yeah, I was talking about this recently with a professor, and this professor said it's really funny hearing, try and look over their commencement speeches.
Good.
Before.
Always a good thing.
Yeah. And always the ones that don't seek help are typically not that good.
That's good advice for everything you do in life. Seek help, seek feedback.
Well, what I was thinking about is all the viral celebrity videos when they're at commencement speeches and oh my gosh, everyone thinks they're brilliant.
Yeah.
But they all get help.
Of course they do.
Because that's smart.
It is smart. Absolutely.
Anyway.
They have a test audience.
Yeah. I won't speak more to that because
Yeah.
I don't want to out someone. But
I know. Someone's just went, oh, the Fonz.
Yeah.
Yes. What is his name? Do you know what I'm talking about?
The Fonz?
Yeah.
Are you talking about the good old days?
Happy Days.
Oh, Happy Days.
I know. What is his name? He's
That
wonderful.
was before both of our time.
Well, Harry Winkler. I think it's Harry Winkler. He just did one and it went viral. It was amazing. He got in front of the podium and he just spoke passionately. And I can't even remember what school it was, but you're right. These things. And now that everything's on social media and everything's available and it's all viral
I would pay
content.
really good money to make me sound that smart and witty and deep.
Yes, I know.
Okay, let's talk about our topic today.
I'm excited. All right.
Okay. So government is pulling back hundreds of billions from the causes nonprofits serve, right as the biggest wealth transfer in history starts moving to heirs and charities. So this episode, we are asking the question, should that generational windfall be expected to fill the gap? And is that what we want in the long term, Courtney?
Oh, I don't think it's what we want in the long term. I think this is just a temporary blip, just like it's a temporary administration, which will wreak havoc, by the way, on the nonprofit system.
And it already has.
Exactly. And that will be long lasting.
Let's dive first into the numbers real quick. At Trump's 100-day mark, that was April 2025, we did talk about this in a past episode, but $430 billion is the amount that the Appropriations Committee tallied 114 programs of funds that have been frozen, canceled, or terminated. Since that time, they have pulled the numbers and June 2025, September 2025, that number went from 430 down to 425, down to 410. We're talking about over 400 billion restricted. Much of this is actually in litigation. The issue is, though, is that it's already impacting the spend.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because what do nonprofits have to do mostly in December of the year before? They have to determine their budget.
That's right.
How do you determine your budget when this is in limbo?
And you can't rely on those funds any longer.
You can't rely on the funds.
That's right.
Let's also talk about the proposal. This is out of the 400 plus billion. This was proposed in May of 2025. They proposed 22.6% cut, or $163 billion, to non-defense discretionary spend. And that exact pot is what funds health, education, science, and social service programs nonprofits lean on. But the good news is it was rejected in January 2026. I think the question is, though, it takes, what is that, 7-8 months to determine whether that proposal will go through, will be passed, or whether it's going to be rejected. How do nonprofits live in this type of environment?
Oh, I think that's the reliance shift, right? All of a sudden, these government funds that have been pretty constant, right? It's almost been something that they've just been able to bake into their budgets without question is gone. That assurance is gone. And so shifting the reliance from the government into these subsidies and grants, all of these resources that, again, have just been a common part of their financial picture, that reliance is now going to private citizens like you and me, or private foundations, or corporate organizations, but corporations aren't stepping up either. And so we really are seeing the fundraising, the campaigns that they're running, right? Their philosophy on fundraising, where they're having to go, the pockets that they're having to pick is completely shifting. And in the meantime, they're having to really buckle down. And that's either getting rid of staff, getting rid of support resources, cutting programs, cutting services. This is not a good time to be a nonprofit, or, we've also seen consolidation in the space. But it's really concerning. And I think it's short-sighted by this administration, because by investing in some of these social services, less criminal action, less money having to be spent on jails and any type of punitive resources.
There's a net savings.
Absolutely.
It's not just wasted. It
and
has
data
an ROI.
Supports that. So if you are not funding this, be prepared to fund the latter, right? Which, by the way, doesn't lead to a better society and certainly doesn't help humankind. So I think it's a short-sighted savings, because it's not really a savings.
Yeah, you have air quotes right now.
I have air quotes. It's not really a savings.
Yeah, and so this 400 plus billion that was already appropriated, that's either frozen or canceled or being litigated. Talk about taxpayer money being wasted as well. Just wrapped up in
all
litigation.
Those lawyers. All those lawyers are paid by a taxer. Yeah. I mean, it's crazy.
I haven't ever heard lawyers are cheap.
They are not.
Okay. And actually, it's important to note that 100 billion of this is in frozen FEMA grants.
Yeah.
And then a lot of this is also related to NIH research grants for Alzheimer's, cancer, diabetes, women's health, public safety, COPS grants, Violence Against Women Act grants, victims of crime programs, disaster relief, and farm and agricultural funding, just to give you an idea of where this 400 plus billion is tied up and not benefiting.
Yeah. So again, not investing in the preventive measures, you're going to have to pay on the care and the handling after the work is not there anymore. And so unfortunately, we'll just continue to see people get sick. We'll continue to see people dive deeper into poverty. And you're going to have to care for them on that end. And it's, again, a short-sighted recipe.
And the fighting that's been going on between the academic institutions and what research can be funded.
Yeah.
And a lot of what we see go into that eventually, like we're talking about 10, 15, 20 years later, becomes a reality. And a lot of times is profited by and commercialized by a large tech company, actually has a lot of its underlying funding and research through academia and government funds.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the only thing I'll bring up is I have been listening to a lot of FEMA stuff in the past month or so, and this argument of federal versus state. I just can't imagine all 50 states handling their own natural disasters.
Yeah, we do. I think every state does on a certain level, but not, to your point, FEMA is so wonderful because it's so collaborative and it is scales of economy. It's taking a lot of resources that are coming in, spreading it around, making sure any type of purchasing, any type of resource investment is in such a level of volume that they're able to take advantage of some benefits there. And so, yeah, every state has a program that's responsive, could not be as successful as FEMA. Couldn't be.
Courtney, what's the benefit of a consultant?
Of a consultant?
Yeah.
Just like a general consultant?
Yeah. Why would most people pull in a consultant?
Because they need another set of eyes outside of their own four walls.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's usually touched a lot of other companies, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I just can't imagine a state that maybe never saw a natural disaster before trying to handle that. Anyway, I think that there's a lot of interesting conversations there that I've been listening to. But just to kind of wrap this up on the numbers front, 61% of nonprofits say current conditions are a moderate to significant risk to staying open. 87% of foundation leaders report rising demand.
I'm sure.
Foundation giving is projected to grow only 5 to 7% in 2026, nowhere near enough. And losing one $2 million federal grant can mean chasing 10 to 20 smaller private grants to replace it.
Yeah.
So the one thing that experts do agree on is that private philanthropy cannot fill a hole this size. You and I talked about the wealth transfer. So let's talk about that for a minute. We talked about it on, I think, episode number 4, the inherited wallet. Just as a reminder, $124 trillion by 2048 will be inherited, with millennials inheriting $46 trillion. But it turns out that the charity slice is even bigger than that. So is that money supposed to fill the federal gap? And is the inheritance generation about to become the safety net? On the other hand, you have all of this inheritance, but you also have a few billionaires. We have Mackenzie Scotts of the world, 17 billion unrestricted funds. Do we really need to rely on the mood and the generosity of a billionaire to fill the gap?
We are now. That's where we are, right? And that's fleeting. That's the problem. To your point, it's mood swings and it's personal priorities, personal preferences, as opposed to government funding, which is supposed to be objective, which is supposed to be spread evenly based on research showing where the need is in our country. But yeah, that is what we are doing, and it's risky and it can be fleeting.
I do think we need to be thoughtful about taxpayer money.
Agreed. Always.
But then you hear of things like these lavish lobster dinners that the Department of Defense or Department of War, whatever you want to call them. And it's not even, at some point, it's not about politicizing. It's nonprofits are impacted. And this is real money that's being taken from our wallets.
Yes.
What is it funding? That's important. And that's important as an American to determine, what do we care about?
Yeah. And not only are you killing services, and unfortunately that will lead into additional deaths in our country, but you're killing innovation, right? Think about the pause that we've had to take over the past 3 to 4 years, the projects that aren't getting funded, the research that's not happening. We are stalled in terms of what we could be doing and where we could be as a country. And that's lost too.
We'll see where we land with Iran.
I know. There you go.
That might be settled by the time this airs. We will see. Every day I think it's supposed to be settled.
Yeah.
Let me just real quick close this thought out with an experiment. Last time we played the long lost cousins game, we had 5 million. You put 15 to 20% to local nonprofits. I started at DAF. So now imagine it's a whole 124 trillion moving to our generation. If you set the rule for how that inheritance generation gives, what do you want this windfall to be remembered for? 124 trillion. It makes it a little bit more impactful.
What do I want it to be known for?
I know what you care about. You care about...
I care about women and children.
Yes.
Yeah. And so is it making some diminishment in the gap between the wealthy and those that are struggling every day? Like just a dent in that gap. Yeah. Agreed.
I liked your response so much. Thank you, Court.
Thanks, Steph.
We'll be right back. Escape into a Cause is sponsored by Nightlight Insurance Agency. You know how a nightlight gives you comfort and peace of mind in the dark? That's exactly what Nightlight aims to do. Guide you through life's uncertainties with personalized insurance for your home, auto, business, and more. Nightlight Insurance strives to provide its clients the best coverage at the best price without sacrificing on customer service. Here's what one client had to say. Nightlight was able to lower our car insurance significantly, answered all our questions, and returned our calls promptly. Very professional, would highly recommend. So it's no surprise Nightlight has a 5-star rating on Google. Nightlight also makes this podcast possible by covering production costs so all other sponsorship dollars and gifts can go directly to nonprofits and volunteers. And as part of their mission to give back, Nightlight proudly donates $1,000 to every nonprofit we interview. If you are a sponsor interested in giving back to our podcast, please find us on social media and let us know. Nightlight is an agency focused on personalized service and giving back. See how much you could save and how good it feels to have peace of mind by visiting nightlightinsurance.com. We have the interim co-executive director of ASHwell, and that is Sandra Chavez.
Yep.
Hey, Sandra.
Good morning. It's great to be here.
I'm so happy you're here, and we are here to talk about ASHwell. What is the mission of ASHwell, Sandra?
So the mission of ASHwell is to empower Central Texans in their sexual health and wellness and meeting the community where they're at.
And that's what it stands for, right? Austin Sexual Health and Wellness?
That's correct. That's correct. And it's a full wellness of mind, body, and spirit.
Fantastic. I do love looking at your history because I think it's so important for listeners. 1983 was the first case of HIV diagnosed in Austin, per your website. 2 years after the first case in the U.S. And so tell me a little bit about how ASHwell was found in this time and why it was founded.
Well, and it's a great story. It dates back to 1988 when there was not a lot of emphasis or even availability and access for folks who were diagnosed with HIV, and AIDS was huge back then. And so it is the story of community helping community, right? It was small local folks who just started doing work that wasn't happening at all. There wasn't any support for people who were living with HIV or diagnosed with AIDS, or people were dying of AIDS. And so ASHwell started out, and I don't remember the original name, but the longest name was Right House Wellness Center, right? And it was about helping people who were the most marginalized, stigmatized in a way that wasn't being afforded by our federal government, right? There were not a lot of folks putting out, if you were sick, there was rental support needed. And the unique thing about ASHwell was it also encompassed people living with Hep C as well. So it was people living with HIV and Hep C at a time where no one else was coming. It's a true story of no one's coming to save us. So we needed to save ourselves.
Yeah, so you needed to organize.
100%.
Love it. And of course, it is Austin Sexual Health and Wellness, ASHwell, meaning it is in Austin. It's a local organization that primarily supports the community of Austin. And you have a little bit further outreach. Is that correct?
Yes, we do. So it is Central Texas is generally what we'll say. So there's like a lot of surrounding counties like Bastrop and Caldwell and Williamson. And so we do support those areas as well. We have a satellite office in San Antonio. We do have the ability via telehealth to do all of Texas, but it is primarily Central Texas.
Is there a cultural or historical connection to the community that makes this cause especially meaningful?
Well, I mean, if you think about the cultural experience of people who were at the time living with HIV and AIDS and now impacted, right? Now we have access to PrEP and PEP and ways to prevent HIV. And we have Hep C treatment, which, I mean, there was a Hep C treatment back then, but it was really difficult and super expensive. And so the cultural significance of a lot of the folks who work at ASHwell are part of the community. And so there's a huge significance of us still being part of the community that helps community. We're also still pretty grassroots, right? So we are a community-based organization. So we're relatively small, and it's still meaningful within the community and trying to keep that impact.
I don't know if you've actually said this, but especially for the LGBTQ plus, maybe I didn't hear it, but you're really creating a community for a historically stigmatized group of people.
Yes, that's 100% true. Historically, the LGBTQIA population and folks living with Hep C have been highly stigmatized. There's a lot of shame that was presented. And then there were times that things got better. And now as we see our current administration, it feels like there's a real push to go backwards. So even now, it seems like we really need to make sure that we are being part of the solution towards the things that people are experiencing, especially our queer community.
Yeah, I find it so interesting that there there are certain people who politically say, get out of my backyard. This is my property. I can do whatever I want. And then they want to control others and what they're doing and restrict what others are doing. And it's not to try to get political, but it's just the times we're in. I am curious. So we talked about location and everything, and I want to go back to that impact piece. And you were talking a little bit about it, about Hep C and HIV and the clinics and the tests. But your programs are beyond just health. Can you go into that a little bit more?
Yeah, for sure. And ASHwell started out as a community-based organization that provided service programs, right? Case management, some financial assistance, and then we incorporated a clinic. So we have medical care now as well. So the focus always has been and it continues to be, how do we provide a whole person care? We provide acupuncture and massage. We've got a drop-in. So we look at what does our community need and how can we position ourselves to provide that. So we do have medical care currently through our clinic, which provides testing for STIs and gender-affirming care. We provide, of course, treatment for Hep C and people living with HIV as well as prevention through PrEP and PAP. And then we've got our social wellness programs that provide case management, peer support, and we've really grown our financial assistance programs where we'll provide food in the way of food cards, rental assistance, utility assistance through multiple programs.
And your fundraising, it's through grants as well as private donors. Is that accurate?
Yeah, we've tried to diversify that in a lot of ways. We've got some federal funding and some city, local funding, as well as if people contribute to the organization, we have a fund where we can provide things that normal financial assistance don't provide, like deposits or cost of a license or an ID. So when people contribute to the agency, it goes straight into programs that help the community.
Yeah, I always kind of like to ask this so in different ways, but say I am someone who wants to support ASHwell, and we'll get to the ways that you can support, but whether that is my time, my money, my talent, my resources, what would you say is the number one impact that I can expect as someone who shows up for ASHwell? What is that impact to our community?
Well, I think it's twofold, right? I mean, if you contribute your time or your financial contribution, that of course goes into programs and support of folks, but just showing up for community. I think one of the biggest pieces of what we do as a community-based organization is provide connection, right? Being there, meeting people in sometimes some of the most vulnerable spots. Speaking about your sexual health can be very vulnerable, right? Or if there's substance use or some mental health, that's a vulnerable space to be. So contributing who you are as a person, your empathy, I think that is in some ways just as equal as a dollar amount or the time that you spend.
Yeah. Courtney Dickey is at the beginning of my show. We go back and forth on topics that we think are important in the philanthropic space. We also address community. And one thing that we've talked about through several episodes is the loneliness epidemic, which is across all populations, right? And all types of people. But for stigmatized groups, it can be probably even worse. I would expect that the community always needs to show up and they find more community in these types of spaces.
Yeah, that's true. And it's well said. We also are living in a time where people who are living with HIV are now aging, which is a unique spot to be in for people living with HIV. And that has been an impact that they have been experiencing, right? Loneliness, isolation, which is part of our drop-in. It was a space, it's for anyone in the community. But what we noticed through that time and through that effort was that folks who were aging and living with HIV found a place to connect with each other. And as time is going on and we're feeling this pressure from, yes, the federal government impacts us through spending and funding, but the whole focus of re-stigmatizing some of our, especially our LGBTQIA folks, is showing up, is separating folks. And so our need to be there and connect with each other is making it even more important. So yeah, I agree with the isolation piece.
I think that's so important with a lot of the nonprofits we speak to. So I think listeners, if this is a community you're interested in showing up for, I think that's where you just start showing up and you start seeing what the nonprofit does and what they're about. My son is 17. I went to Drive a Senior, and it's where you spend time with seniors. And my son and I would go have visited on their birthdays. And just how incredibly thankful they were for someone to show up on their birthday. Anyway, I really urge listeners, in a world where everyone can feel lonely and you can just go on social media or sit on your phone all day behind Reddit, to just show up. It's easy. I get on Reddit, I get on social media, but just show up for your community, get in person, get that in-person connection, and y'all have a lot of activities and events. I urge everyone to check out y'all's website. Would love to know more about how has your organization influenced people to care about your cause?
That's a good question. I think continuing that message that there are people who have need and that trying to get folks involved, I think it's really important to think about that the people that we serve that come through any of our programs are us, right? So you're being there for you, things that about you, things that you're connected to, whether that's cultural or you're from the queer community or you know someone living with HIV or you are living with HIV yourself. It is keeping that messaging, understanding that there are people that we're all falling hard times at one point or another. And being part of the community that we serve is the community that we are. I think that's important, and understanding how continuing that message onward. So I think we do a good job of that through our Instagram posts and so a lot of our social media. I think it's really important to keep that messaging right at the forefront of people so that they're seeing it often. It's easy to forget. It's easy to get involved in your day-to-day and not understanding how that's connected to other things in the world.
What do you say to people who maybe aren't LGBTQ themselves and how those people show up? And I'm just curious for people who go, okay, I maybe feel like an outsider, but I just wanted to hear more about the mix of all the types of people that come and show up and how.
There's a large point about that community that gravitate to us because they get stigmatized the most, right? We face that kind of discrimination the most often. But a lot of us face discrimination in multiple different ways, whether it's gender, whether it's race, whether it's poverty, which is a pretty significant group that's stigmatized. We can all relate to what it's like to have some discrimination towards you, or even if you don't personally experience it, have you seen it? I'm sure you have, especially in this day and age. So I think, is it relative to all of us? Yeah, I would say that it is.
Yeah. What is one surprising thing that people wouldn't guess about the work you do?
I think one of the surprising things would be we are a sexual health and wellness agency, that it doesn't really apply to them unless they're potentially at risk, right? I'm not seeing multiple people and having sex with a lot of folks. And so it's only important when it's a risk. And that's not necessarily true. I think sexual health is healthcare, right? I think it's important for all of us to recognize how that's impactful. Regular testing should be important for anyone, right, who is a grown adult. And so I think that's probably the most common misconception, is that it's for them and it's not for me. And we really do believe that sexual health is for everyone.
That is part of the process of ostracizing others, though, isn't it? Is by saying, oh, it's for others, not me. I'm not that
us
type
and
of
them.
person.
Yeah. I think we, as a society, especially in the last several years, that's become really a focus, right? I don't feel like I belong to that group. I don't feel like I can relate to that group. And there's been a lot of messaging in other social medias or other podcasts that really do try to separate the us and them sort of debate. And I think it happens a lot right now. And I think it's important for us to recognize that there's a little bit of us in every them.
Yeah. I like some of the conversations I've had with nonprofits that cater to the immigrant population, and hearing how even those that wanted to help and felt like we're all the same, I'm going to help anyone, they were even surprised by how normal the children were that were coming from another country, came from poverty, and they were like, oh, they're just like my daughter, or they're just like, so I think it really takes down the wall of the me versus them or us versus them when you just start being around different people that you wouldn't necessarily say that you think that you're the same as, because then you realize we're all just human.
Yeah, I think education is key. The most significant and profound education is the education that you receive when you are just immersed in whatever community that is, and the recognition of how relatable other people's experiences are to our own.
Yeah, absolutely. So do y'all collaborate with other organizations?
Oh, 100%. This is not something that should be done in isolation. There are so many folks who need different things. And I think a lot of our community-based organizations, we're really good at focusing in an area. So it's perfect to have someone who focuses in this area, and a person that you're serving has multiple needs, and someone else is good at this or someone else offers that. It's super important to be collaborative with your community partners, other sexual health organizations, other clinics, other treatment centers. We're not experts in mental health, right? So it's ensuring that you have really significant connections with other organizations is key to providing any kind of service.
Yeah, every time I think I can do anything on my own, I realize how much more powerful I am with partnerships and other people.
That's true.
Yeah.
Very, very true.
Okay, I do want to hear an impactful story, if you have any, about ASHwell, whether that's the origin story or something you can share about someone who's benefited from your resources.
So, and I thought about this question, and I realized that all of us that work there have a story. It's someone that we've worked with and seen someone who came out of incarceration, who struggled to get employment or housing, and how we showed up for that and were able to provide to that. Someone who had multiple challenges and barriers. They were undocumented. They had just left incarceration. They needed treatment. And we were able to provide for some of that treatment, find housing, even when we weren't able and they were being held by ICE, just to be there, right? To continually speak to them so they knew they weren't alone in that challenge. I think someone who comes for testing because they're afraid that they may have been exposed to HIV, being there, someone who comes and is tested and finds out for the first time that they're HIV positive. There are peers who have actually lived that experience who can walk that journey with them. There are folks who are at risk of losing their housing, right? They've got an eviction notice and we're able to provide enough payment for them to be able to remain where they're at and stay stably housed. I think everyone that you would talk to at our agency, the clinicians who have someone who's fearful of their exposure and going through PEP, it's like everyone has a story of someone who has come, or our own stories of what we've encountered in the world and how other agencies showed up for us. I think it's hard to pick one story, and I know it's really warm and fuzzy to hear like a one person's story, but to understand that everybody has a story, and there are millions of them that happen over the years that we've been providing services.
Yeah, in each of those journeys, you have been able to help them with various obstacles like housing insecurity, food insecurity, mental health, right? So y'all are showing up in different ways and also partnering with other organizations.
Yes, our referral system is super important if someone needs treatment or mental health services. Having those connections and those relationships to be able to do that, I think, is key. It's an important part of what we do.
Yeah, I love that. All right, I want to talk about you for a minute. I always ask for a good brag, and this has nothing to do with ASHwell or the organization, but has to do with something that you're proud of that you've taken on recently or in the past year or something, and it could be a small act of kindness or something bigger. Can you share something, Sandra?
Sure. I feel very humbled that I've learned a lot over the years that I've provided. I've learned about different communities, and one of the things that I really am proud of is creating this training in harm reduction. And it's the principles of harm reduction were closely related to people who use substances, and realizing those are very great foundational steps that we as service providers should be utilizing in our services to people. And so putting together this training for other service providers that maybe have never done harm reduction, or just looking at harm reduction in a different way, like looking at harm reduction as a way that you can provide services, always looking through it the same lens of harm reduction. And I've been honored to do a training like that with a partner of mine for the last 7 years. We just finished up a condensed version of that training last week. It was our last session. So I'm very proud of that. We've been able to publicize some of our findings. What was our impact? We do a pre and a post survey and understanding what the impact of that training has been on multiple organizations. And we focus on organizations that do services for people living with HIV in the southern part of the United States.
Amazing. And you started that 7 years ago?
7 years ago, yeah.
Okay. And you'll kind of refresh it and do it every year?
Yes, it's had a couple of iterations over time, but the focus is always the same. Harm reduction principles seen through a lens as service provision.
Yeah. That's incredible. That's a really good brag. Okay, love it, love it. Now, listeners need to be able to go to dinner parties and events and talk about the amazing things they're doing for nonprofits. How can they show up for ASHwell and earn some good bragging rights?
Yeah, there's multiple ways, right? We put out all the events that we have through our Instagram and our social media posts, and always having folks from the community participate, whether that's volunteering, helping us set up, or just pushing it back out there to the community so our reach is wider. So those are great ways to show up. And like I said, we're always posting that on social media. This is Pride Month, so there's lots of different things to be part of. So,
Happy Pride Month.
Happy Pride Month. And I think it's, especially it's always important to recognize Pride Month. I think where we're at right now in the world, I think it's even more important. So keep a lookout to our Instagram and our social media, and there's always something out there. We're very easy to get connected to.
Yeah,
and welcome anybody's time and gifts.
Amazing. So follow you guys on social media.
Yes.
That's where y'all will be posting events. Check out the website, start getting involved.
Absolutely. We're happy to have you.
Love it. Okay. And then I think awareness is really one of the big things that you'll want to get out of this is making sure others are talking about ASHwell, right? And sharing it with their community. So not only follow social media, but also share with your friends and family.
Definitely.
Great. If there was one more thing that you could ask for, what would that be?
I mean, nonprofit is always sustainable funding, right? We should be able just to do the services that we do. We should be able to just be there for our community. But there's a significant amount of time that's spent having a way to have the funding to do those things. So if we could have anything in the world, that's what it would be.
Yeah, sustainable funding. So I've even said this on past episodes that some people think, oh, I'll give a one time. But the minute you give something that's maybe even smaller monthly and then you set it and forget it, that allows nonprofits to budget. So maybe instead of thinking I'm going to give one large amount once, set it and forget it a little bit less. I think it's going to end up being more in the long run for the nonprofit if you set it and forget it and you just kind of make it one of your bills.
Yes, this is a tighter one struggling, right? So, and we understand that. Smaller donations, but monthly, that's key. Most of us aren't rich enough to give a large amount at one time. And a lot of agencies, a lot of companies offer opportunities to give from your paycheck, and sometimes they'll match it. We've had some organizations come to us about that. And so if your organization participates in that, select us, $5 out of each paycheck. Sometimes it can feel overwhelming. I don't have enough to give a large amount, but you're absolutely right. A small amount each month is very significant. And, all that money goes to what we do. It goes straight to providing services to people in our community. So every dollar that you would give would count.
I can't stress that enough. So not only reoccurring donations, but get that match. Courtney and I dived into the numbers episodes back, but the key takeaway is there are billions of dollars that are left on the table for nonprofits because employees don't take on that match. And that just shows you all it takes. And I get it. I said that I had left money on the table as well because the process sometimes is difficult to match. Like maybe I sent something and they needed more information and I forgot to follow up, right? But if you have free money from your company, try to maximize that match if you can afford it because it's free money for nonprofits.
Yes.
Yeah. Sandra, anything else you want to share?
Think about us, push our message out. Join our Instagram, follow us. I think that's important, ensuring that folks know who we are and that we're here. Sometimes that can be a challenge for nonprofits. Make sure that folks are getting the message. We're here, we're ready to serve. Come see us.
I think that's great. I know listeners, we're trying to get people who are trying to figure out where to show up, how to show up for their community. But I think it's just as important to listen to these nonprofits like ASHwell and think about, is there anyone I know that could benefit from these resources in this community, which is just as important. I love that. Follow ASHwell, get involved. And Sandra, this has been such a pleasure. Thank you so much.
I really appreciate it. Thanks for letting me come.
Thanks. And that's a wrap on today's episode. I'm going to be honest, I always do a quick search on guest organizations just to see what people are actually saying. And every word Sandra said about ASHwell rings true. Facebook posts, Reddit posts, people really love this organization. If this episode moved you at all, please go donate. Good bragging rights are the best kind of bragging rights. And why not go do some good this summer? Thank you, Sandra, for the lovely interview. Thank you to Nightlight Insurance for your donation and sponsorship of this podcast, Todd Thompson for the wonderful editing and mixing, Ashlyn O'Neill for digital content management, and Corey at Just Push Record Studios. I hope to see you next third Thursday when we escape into a cause.